probably one of the biggest concerns expressed about that particular site. Okay, now you noticed we're moving forward with 3 shortlisted options to do further study. One of the things about this charrette, the character of the charrette changed a little bit from what we had originally planned, partly because the charrette was bigger than we anticipated, and it was harder to get progress because there was so much input. So what we did, we kind of changed this thing a little bit. We're shortlisting 3 sites. We haven't been able to get down to dig deeper into some of these before we have a final recommendation. So 3 sites are the Broadway site, the Roundy site, and the hospital site are the 3 that we're recommending for further study. For those of you who have interest, you notice the McLaughlin School is not on the list. Even though I will say, but with that said, as a building, as a facility, the McLaughlin School would have worked very well for a transition center. But it doesn't make sense, I don't think, to put a facility in a community that doesn't really support it. So anyways, it's not on the list. So what we'll do with these 3 facilities is to, now that we have them narrowed down from 20 to 3, now we can go in and spend more time developing the cost for construction costs and project costs. We have to do a more detailed staffing analysis on both these facilities and develop operating budgets, which will include, utility costs and transportation costs between the jail and the courthouse and things of that nature. We just need more time to develop this. It's just impossible to get it all done in 4 days. Then we're going to validate some of the data. There were a couple of questions about some of the statistics that we collected and try to analyze those, like what does this mean, and dig a little deeper on some of these things. We're going to review these recommendations with the county staff. At this point in time, the purpose of the charrette has been served. At this time, we need to get down and meet with the juvenile transition center staff, a little more detail, the sheriff, the county administrator, and so forth, and work through some of the details that we need to develop to finish this process. And then we will eventually present a final report to the committee, the jail and juvenile training center committee. Our intention is to be there next Thursday with basically the summary presentation. This is where we're at. Is this okay? Is this, are these 3 sites okay for us to consider further? Then we have what we call next steps for county considerations. The things on the previous slide were all things within the scope of RQW and LICE's scope as far as the study. This other thing is things beyond that, long-term kind of things that were brought up by the community. So, there needs to be some consideration of how do we study these other issues that were brought up. Are they real issues? How do they impact the jail? Can we continue to bend the curve on the population? What impact will be had if some of these things are instituted? So, we're going to review things like law enforcement, judiciary practices, these various diversion programs. We talk about the impact of appearance citations, court date reminders for the failure to appears, electronic monitoring is one of the things. Sobriety court, increasing either, some of the, like the various mental health court, veterans court, drug court, either instituting those things, or is there a way to make, expand the things that we do? Again, the impact of these, or the potential benefit of these is beyond the scope of this particular exercise. I don't think all these questions have to be answered before you do anything with the jail and juvenile transition center. As I stated before, I think the jail's got to be replaced, the juvenile transition center has to be replaced. But these things, you have to start somewhere. So you start somewhere and start working on short-term solutions while you're continuing to develop solutions for the long-term solutions, especially things like this that require some time to to understand. And then we will validate, or there's additional information that needs to be validated. Particularly, one of the questions came up, a high percentage of incarceration in jails for obstruction of justice. Okay, well, we'll dig on. A lot of times those are a charge that's associated with something else too. And so there were questions there that we just couldn't answer in that time frame. So there's a little more time to investigate that. And then we need time also to investigate the other things that might happen to us that we have no control over that's going to increase the jail population, like the state's going back to the county. And trends, we need to look at the trends on index crimes. That's going to continue to impact the population there.
Consider adding racial and economic disparity in the system as part of what we continue to see.
Is that, how's everybody feel about it? And again, these types of things, as far as investigations are typically above my pay grade. This is, there's talent in this room that can move together and accomplish this. So that's how we move forward. As I said, the charrette is at the end, and it doesn't mean the study's done. And we'll continue to work with the Jail and Juvenile Transition Center Committee and the county administration to complete the study over the next month or so. So we would like to thank everybody for your participation. I have to say that the process was absolutely awesome. I mean, we're all going home tired. In a way, glad it's done, and we've got to get some sleep. But I mean, I think the forum was excellent. I hope everybody appreciated the opportunity to be heard and all. But I think we got a lot done in a short period of time. I think it was really good. So I thank everybody for being here. So, Mary, you had a question?
Yeah, you said you had a presentation to the county board next week?
No, we're going to the committee next week. I don't know when anything will go forward. We still have some work to do. But I'll take it to the committee. What the committee decides to do, I'll just do what I'm told.
What committee is it?
It's the Jail and Juvenile Transition Center Committee that meets next Thursday. I can't think of the date. At 1:30.
Is that the one that has a representative from each county district?
Well, that's the Citizens Committee. Yeah, that's this committee. I chair it, and then we have a couple commissioners on it. Several commissioners, four commissioners, including the county chair. Former Sheriff Carter is on it. Prosecutors represented, courts are represented, health department, community health, a couple ad hoc people. And again, it's a public meeting, it's open to the public. It starts at 1:30, and there's commission chambers on the fourth floor. Usually runs an hour or so, give or take. May go a little longer, may not go quite as long.
There was another question.
Just want to get the comments from Judge Thompson, the whole report from today.
You said it again, I didn't hear
The
it.
comments from Judge Thompson, will they go into the report?
Yeah, we'll do that.
What does the citizens committee fit into the whole?
Well, the Citizens Committee is hopefully, the function of the Citizens Committee is to kind of develop a group of diplomats that will both educate folks from the various districts of the county, commission districts of the county, that can be the kind of the go-to people with questions that are informed on a lot of this discussion that's taking place. Maybe.
Their function is going to be after one of the decisions are made.
Well,
Just-
the Citizens Review Committee, I think is the official name.
Right.
They had provided us a list of questions.
Right.
A list of who's in jail and why else. And at the time we got the list of questions, we had no idea what the answers were because we were still in the data collection process. Now that we've gone through this and we've gathered this information, then we can begin to provide those answers and that feedback to the Citizen Review Committee. So, you know, we're in a position now to be, you know, to make, you know, communication and so forth with them much more effective. Because we didn't have anything to tell them before. Yes, sir?
So are you suggesting that you are going to make a report available to the Citizens Review Committee in response to those questions?
Yes.
And not just the JJTCC committee, but the Citizens Review Committee as well?
Yeah, we'll respond to those specific questions that we got. I think there were actually two sets of questions we got. There was one early on in the process and then one just rather recently.
For Joe and Brett, just Pastor Dave and I had a conversation last night after the meeting. And, you know, we both said you guys did a great job in terms of handling some of the stuff that came at you. You know, for all intents and purposes, you are outsiders. I heard Paul mention to you, Joe, the other day, you know, you got thrown at you a bunch of stuff that has been repressed. And people haven't had a chance to voice. So in terms of you guys not getting defensive, being willing to let people have a chance to speak, I do want to say thank you for that. So I was disappointed though, I didn't think that was
Disappointed me, man.
But no, thank you for the conversation.
I appreciate that. This is a learned, you know, skill by having children. So,
I thought you said it was herding cats.
herding cats.
It's very similar.
Oh.
Very similar.
Are there any other questions or comments?
I have one final comment.
Yeah, Bob.
I haven't been on in a long time. I was wanting to really, talking with John, Scott Plummer, and the sheriff, I was really looking forward to the charrette process. If we would have had this many years ago, we wouldn't be here today. We would have been able to solve these problems. This process has got its flaws. And you have helped make at least some thinking changes in lots of folks. But had this been done years ago in this process, we wouldn't be where we are today. We would be talking about more positive things than more negative things. So I want to thank you for that. I have been absolutely impressed, even through all the thick and thin, the good and bad, whatever you want to categorize it. I think it's been one of the most positive experiences that I had in all my years in law enforcement. So I want to thank you for that. This might go somewhere else. I have absolutely no idea. But at least now we have, I say we, the community, and those of us in law enforcement, we have something now to hang our hat on. We can say we were part of a process. Now we've been part of the problem. Now we can also be part of the solution. And I think that several of us, Paul's retired now, but he's had 30-some years and invested in his part, and I have for over 30 years invested in mine. I think we're there. I think we're on a positive step up toward where we really want to be. And last thing I want to say is I really want to compliment the County Board of Commissioners. There's been times when I would have never said that. I tell you, you shoot the board and the retribution is down. I'm just telling you. But in the last 4 or 5 years after I retired, there's been some very positive things. You might not think so, but I want to tell you there's been a lot of changes done by the County Board of Commissioners. And I think that there's going to be positive movement toward the solution of some of these problems. So that's my 2 cents.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you saying so.
And Joe, I just wanted to reiterate some process stuff really quickly. That's kind of a message from Bonnie, and again, she apologizes for not being here, but she just wanted me to reiterate with everyone the process once again. I just want to be repetitious because I want to be consistent with what our previous position has always been. And so again, moving this report forward, we're not going to have a final report ready by this coming Thursday. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to provide, again, an update, kind of like we did kind of today, to that committee, the JJTCC meeting coming up. Again, we also have to, at some point, debrief the Citizen Advisory Group as well. And I don't know a time frame on that one yet either. Then, once the final report is ready, and do we have an estimate at this time of when that report may be?
I don't.
So we don't even have.
It's going to be at least a month.
At least. So we got a month out, it sounds like at least, minimum. And then once that does come forward, it will go back to the JJTCC meeting. You're getting pretty good at saying that now. Yeah, that's right. And so it'll go there, and then obviously it will end up to the advisory group, citizen advisory group as well. And at that point, I wish I'd had a time frame for you. I don't have any. Because eventually, if any movement moves, it does have to flow its way up to the Board of Commissioners eventually. But again, anyone's guess at this point, there's a lot of variables what I'm basically trying to say in there. The other thing I'd like to say is Brett will be giving me updates on the presentation as it's progressed. This information will be included on the county's website, and so anyone would like information on this, where's the best place to put that, Sheriff?
On this?
Yeah, maybe I put it on the project site where we
Project
have
site,
the SharePoint.
If that won't.
I think I'll do the SharePoint and the front page of the county website. I think those are the two things that I'll start at. If anyone else has any suggestions, please let me know. But that's where it will be located. Other than that,
One thing I might say, wherever you put this on the website, you gotta have a lot of storage. This presentation is 312 slides.
I've got 96 terabytes, as you guys know.
It might be. I just had to give them the opportunity to get that in there. So,
And it's backed up by a 48 terabyte system, so anyway, I'm sorry.
Joe?
Yes.
Why don't we change the name of the committee to Restorative Justice? I mean, that's the community's goal here, is to change the way we do our criminal justice system. Let's change the name. Let's quit talking about the jail and quit talking about transition center as if we're picking sides or whatever. Let's talk about restorative justice in our community. And my executive director is cringing. But I mean that. I mean, the community wants to restore its integrity, and criminal justice is part of that. And there are other things, schools, all kinds of stuff. But restorative justice is an issue that has been really worked on heavily, and we have a long way to go. And I think that would be the start of it. To quit looking at it as two separate entities, jail and the transition center. Let's just talk about a restorative process to bring our community where we want it to go.
Well, I support that, what Bob indicates, is that at the point that we begin to look at the processes more restorative in nature, there becomes more in common with the two projects. One of the things that, from the very beginning, that I've tried to keep to the forefront is the very differences between the transition center and jail. And the reason is, it's the approach, and I think we've heard through the course of the conversation that there may very well be many things underway in the family division process that we would like to see as part of the adult justice system. And we need to move in that direction. Facilities are not going to solve our problems as a community. There's a lot more that needs to happen. I much appreciate the citizens that showed for this process and expressed themselves. And I actually, actually have Bob Cartby in the work world, my nearly 38 years. It's the first time that we actually talked in a public space with the prosecutor being here, or prosecutor-elect being here, and other representatives of the system to talk about the things that people are concerned about. That's not happened in my career. And so I do hope that we're able to build on that, and that this is very much a starting point and not an end point to the process.
And kind of piggybacking along with that, we have been authorized by the JJTCC to have a health impact assessment of this whole process, to look at the various components of the jail and juvenile transition and how they affect the health of our community. And those are really big, broad questions. You've heard Faith raise a few of them from time to time through this process. And you may have noticed along the back, there's research questions that we posted there the first day, looking various aspects of the project impact health of the community. So I did just want to let you know that that piece is also going on as, separate or related to this process, and hopefully will inform some of the decisions that the Board of Commissioners make. So if you are interested in those questions and interested in having some input about how those questions are asked and answered based on research, please, I invite you to be included as part of our health impact assessment team. The folks we're meeting about once a month at this point, and just looking at those pathways, looking at that research, looking at those questions, and trying to figure out what are the best answers for the community to help inform the decision. Thanks.
Rosie?
Yes, I enjoyed Sheriff Carter's remarks because former Commissioner William Murray had alluded to a name change somewhere. And I think that this is something good that we can look at because it isn't what you call me, it's what I respond to. It's restorative is a lot softer and it may have an impact on people. And I think it's a great idea to explore something.
See what I told you about commissioners talking good about you?
But look how long it took. It took an awful long time. Anything else? Okay, if not seeing any, then I propose we adjourn. Again, I thank all of you very much for your participation.